Okay, so hello everyone. Welcome again. My name is Jody Dublin, and I want to welcome you to Beyond Barnard's Spring Pre-Law Overview. I'm the Associate Director of Advising and Programs, Graduate and Professional School Lead here at Beyond Barnard, which is Barnard's hub for advising and resources around careers, internships, competitive fellowships, and applications to graduate and professional school. As part of my role, I provide programming and advising related to graduate and professional school admissions. So I'm really pumped today to talk to you about being pre-law and the path to law school. We'll talk about what you can be doing now, whether you're an undergrad or an alum, and what you can be doing in the future to prepare you to be successful in law school application. So let's get started. All right. So the first question that I have for you all is I'm curious, what are you hoping to get out of this session? You can either throw it in the chat or you can unmute yourself. I want to know, I want to know what you're thinking, what questions you have.
I have a question. Maybe it's a little context specific.
Uh-huh.
I'm a third year student at Barnard.
Mhm.
Um, I've been pretty set on pursuing like law school and applying to law school since I was young. It's kind
Mhm.
of been like an in and out, just the fear and stuff over the past few years.
Yeah.
Um, I guess my question is, what should I be most conscious of right now? And
Mm.
cautious with and wary.
Yes. Well, where should we start, right? There's a lot to worry about right now. But in terms of law school stuff, we will definitely be talking about what you, as a junior, can be thinking about and considering as you're on this path. Thank you so much for that question. Someone else said they want to gain a better understanding of the application timeline and learning about methods to afford law school. Yes, I love that. We're thinking financially right off the bat. Perfect. I'm a sophomore at a Barnard and I want to learn more about what I should be thinking about right now. We're going to be talking about that, knowing how to stand out, considering how competitive law school is. Perfect. So, we are going to be talking about all of these things and more. So, I would say, like I said, I'm going to be focusing on the presentation. If you have questions, you can feel free to throw them into the chat and I'd be happy to answer them. So let's get started. Okay, so here's our agenda for today. We're going to be talking about pre-law at Barnard. We'll do a little overview of the law school application components. We'll talk about the application year and how you can think about the year leading up to, you hopefully being able to get into law school. I'll have a little bit of time for advice for alums. I'll discuss some additional resources, and then of course, we'll do a little Q&A. So first, let's begin with this. What does it mean to be pre-law at Barnard? So being pre-law at Barnard is basically, I like to say that being pre-law is a vibe, right? So I'm sure a lot of you have pre-health friends, pre-med, pre-dental, and they have like a very set track that they need to follow. They need to take certain classes, they need to do certain extracurriculars. It's very, very set, right? When it comes to pre-law, it is a lot less set. It is a lot more like, I'm going to law school at some point. It's not necessarily I'm going to law school right after undergrad or, after a gap year or whatever. It's a vibe. It's an intention to attend law school. It's also a collection of coursework and extracurricular experiences intended to prepare you for law school and your legal career. It's also using trusted resources to gain information about the law school application process. And I really want to emphasize that trusted resources. And we will, when we get to the end, talk a little bit about what some trusted resources are. So, what pre law isn't is limited to your undergraduate years. A ton of people decide to go to law school after having a different career or after taking a year or so off. So, it is not just being an undergrad. It's not specific to any major or minor. And also, again, it's not relying on unverified resources to help you make decisions about the law school process, right? We want to make sure that when we're making this investment in ourselves, that we're using verified and trusted resources. So, when we're thinking about some skills that we can hone in the lead up to law school, here are some things that the American Bar Association recommends. So, we have things like problem solving, right? Critical reading. Law school is a bunch of reading, a bunch of case files and things like that. It's really great to be able to practice that skill while you're here in undergrad. Writing and editing, oral communication and listening, research, organization and management, public service and promotion of justice, relationship building and collaboration, background knowledge, and exposure to law. So, this is what the American Bar Association, which is the governing body of the legal profession in the United States, this is what they recommend that pre-law students hone their skills and bone up on before they go to law school and enter the legal profession. So when we're talking about preparation, it kind of starts with academic preparation, right? Having a strong academic preparation is a foundation and a bedrock of being able to get into law school and being successful in law school. So when it comes to this academic preparation, we want to make sure that we're choosing classes that are challenging, that require significant amounts of reading and writing and research and entail critical and analytical thinking. So I definitely want to highlight that reading and writing part. I don't want to exclude my STEM majors. It could be helpful to supplement any STEM classes or classes that don't require, or majors that don't require a lot of reading and writing and research and things like that, with a couple of courses that challenge you to do so. So some people will take like a philosophy class or take an English class or a social science class that allows them to engage with research, writing, reading, and stuff like that. So that's one thing to think about. You're also going to want to choose a major that interests you and that you can do well in, right? So when it comes to law school, you can choose any academic path that you want to. You can be an art major, a bio major, a chemistry major. A lot of people choose political science, but you don't have to be a political science major. You can choose whatever you want. Just choose something that interests you and that you can do well in. So this is what American Bar Association says. They just really reiterate that whatever major you select, you are encouraged to pursue an area of study that interests and challenges you while taking advantage of opportunities to develop your research and writing skills. Taking a broad range of difficult courses from demanding instructors is excellent preparation for legal education. A sound legal education will build upon and further refine the skills, values, and knowledge that you already possess. So, being a Barnard student, being here in the liberal arts, we are setting you up to be successful in law school because you are taking, a broad range of classes by being part of your gen ed and your major classes. So again, the American Bar Association is not giving any specific recommendations for certain courses or majors. They want to make sure that you have the skills that you're going to need to be a successful lawyer and law student when the time comes. So now let's take a look at extracurricular activities. The American Bar Association wants you to emphasize or wants you to really think about activities that challenge you to be a leader. Internships are a great place to get those. Community service, being involved with your community, understanding what's going on is a really great thing that law schools are looking for. Anything that will allow you to hone your critical skills, both law related and non-law related. So, um, a lot of students talk about wanting to do like a paralegal job. That's not the only way to get into law school. It's going to be good for some people. It's not going to be good for some people. You should be pursuing internships in areas that you're interested in, and that you can gain these skills in. I have a list of some uh, clubs, some pre-law clubs that are here on campus, whether here at Barnard or Barnard and Columbia. I'm sure this is not an exhaustive list, but this is what I was able to find on the website. I would say getting involved with any of these clubs could really net you a positive experience here at Barnard. So finally, professional preparation is something to think about when considering going to law school. You'll definitely want to take some time to get to know the profession by talking to people, relationship building, doing research on your own about law school and about the legal profession. You want to make sure that you know what you're getting into. Internships and work experiences are really great ways to build your professional skills for getting into law school and into the profession. Relationship building is a really important part of the profession, especially as you are trying to get through law school and into the profession. And part of that is considering who will write your letters of recommendation. So you're going to want to focus a lot on making sure that you have a firm connection with at least a few people that will be able to vouch for you when you're in the law school application process. Okay. So, as I said before, some people engage in uh, internships and opportunities that are directly related to law. That's not required by law schools. In fact, most people don't have something that's directly related to law. But as I like to tell students and alums who come to me and are looking for law-related activities, the wonderful thing about the law, for better or worse, maybe, is that the law touches every single part of our life. So if you have any interest, if you're interested in art, if you're interested in science, if you're interested in education, whatever it is, there is a legal aspect to it. And so by engaging in internships, activities, volunteering, whatever that's in the area that you're interested in, you are also learning about how the law impacts these areas. So this is just a sample. This is just an example of some organizations that you could volunteer with or work with if you're interested in these areas. So I have like immigration law. If you're interested in that, here are a couple of organizations where you could volunteer or intern or work to learn more about immigration law. Civil rights law, we have the NYCLU. You also can work with your local government officials. This is a really great way to understand how the law is impacting your local community. And if you're a New Yorker, which I guess you are because we're all New Yorkers here at Barnard, there are tons of different levels of local politician that you could work with. There are assembly people, council people, state senators, regular senators. There are tons of politicians that you can work with that are always looking for interns. Intellectual property, either hard sciences or humanities research, or even an advertising agency. And then finally, environmental law, if you're interested in that, something like Grow NYC or the West Harlem Environmental Action could be really great organizations so that you can kind of understand, again, how environmental law is impacting our neighbors. Finally, we have personal preparation. So law school, is a big commitment in terms of time, finances, and effort. You're going to want to prepare yourself for what's to come. So first of all, you want to make sure that you're researching. You're taking time to look into the specific careers that you're interested in. This will help you in two ways, right? So it's going to first help you to when it comes time to apply to law schools, to understand which schools are going to be strong in the areas you're interested in going into. Then also it can help you to understand, is law school actually necessary for the career that you want to go into? legal careers, there's more than one kind of legal career, and understanding the profession and understanding the field can help you understand, do I want to be a lawyer or do I want to be in one of these other adjacent legal careers? So research is paramount. Um, you should also be doing some me search, right? So this is what I like to call introspection, me search, right? So you want to think about timing, right? Do you want to go right after undergrad? Do you want to go after a gap year? Do you want to try out another profession beforehand? You have to think about these things. Next, you want to think about your fit for law school, finding out about what law school entails, what the challenges are, what the great parts are, by talking to law students will really help you kind of understand if law school is going to be a good fit, the best next step for you. Then, of course, there's financial considerations. Law school is notoriously expensive, and so you definitely are going to want to think about how you're going to pay for that, whether it's through loans or self-pay or some other method of scholarships, whatever. You're going to want to think about how you're going to go about that. And then finally, of course, we have visa and immigration concerns. This is the reality of the situation. It can be a little bit tricky to deal with the visa situation, the immigration situation. So that can factor into your timeline of, and when and if and where you want to go to law school. So I want to spend the next few minutes kind of breaking down the path to law school by year. So here we have our first year. If you're a first year, here are some things you can be thinking about. This is a time of exploring options. So first, you want to watch or attend a pre-law overview. Congratulations, you're already doing that. We can cross that out right away. Next, you're going to want to sign up for the pre-law toolkit. There is going to be a QR code in the next few slides that you can scan and make sure that you're a part of. You're going to want to attend pre-law events to learn more about law school. This semester in the fall, we have our Law Focus series that you can be a part of. So I would double check and handshake to see the events that we're offering. You're going to want to create a strong academic foundation, explore majors, take interesting and challenging classes, push yourself, do as well as you can. You'll want to create some relationships with faculty members. Again, we're thinking about in the future, who might we want to reach out to for a letter of recommendation? Next, we're going to want to explore some on-campus clubs and organizations. Some maybe are the ones that I talked about earlier, or maybe there are some other ones that are not listed, not pre-law associated, that you're going to want to be involved in. You're going to want to get to know other pre-law people at Barnard. So again, organizations are a really good idea. They have events where you can network and get to know lawyers and other people. And then you're going to want to talk to lawyers and law students to get a sense of, what does this next step entail? How, what was law school like? How did you choose to go, et cetera, et cetera. So for my sophomores in the house, you can think about this year as building your foundation. You're going to want to consider some internships that can help you explore your pre-law interest. You want to get involved again with on and off-campus organizations and initiatives. You want to show up at pre-law events and activities. Again, you're selecting a major, doesn't matter which one that you like, one you can do well in. Focus on nurturing your relationships with faculty and peers, super important. You're going to want to start curating your list of letter of recommendation writers. So again, thinking about who you have a strong relationship with, who you can keep in touch with over the next few years. You're going to want to think about that. You'll also want to start budgeting for test prep, application fees, and school visits. Applying to law school, the costs do add up. And so it's a good idea to start sooner rather than later to budget and think about how you're going to pay for that. And then you're going to want to connect with people in the legal field to learn more about the profession and law school. So spoiler alert, that's going to be in every slide because it's really important to know as much as you can as you're making your decision. So, speaking of making decisions, in your junior year, this is a decision-making time, right? You really are going to have to start thinking about what your application timeline is going to be. And by that, I mean, are you going to take a gap year or gap time, or are you going to apply straight out of undergrad? So, it's important to get the ball rolling and start to make a decision on that so that you can enter your senior year with confidence and a plan that you know what you're going to do. So, going to want to consider that. You're going to want to consider your standardized test timing and create your study plan. So, again, that might be contingent upon whether or not you're going to take a gap year. Some people choose to still take their standardized testing during their junior or senior year, even if they're taking gap time, because they want to just kind of get it over with while they're in school mode. That's something that you can consider. Investigate your test prep options, maintain a stable academic foundation. Again, reach out to those Barnard alums and law school and the legal fields. Revisit your list of recommenders and ensure that you still feel good about each choice. So this is a self-audit time. Like, have I been going to office hours? Have I been maintaining my connection with these people? Is there someone else that I want to add to this list? Is there someone I want to take off the list, right? This is a time of like making your decisions. You're going to want to seek out some leadership roles in on-campus organizations. I invite everybody, not just juniors and seniors or applicants, to attend law school info sessions. I think they're a really good way to get to know other people and also understand in depth the law school application process. Um, Meet with Beyond Barnard to discuss your application timeline, pursue internships, jobs, and volunteer opportunities, and again, keep in touch with those potential recommenders. So in your senior year, now we're actually making moves, okay? So you're revisiting your application timeline and saying, does this make sense to me? Am I still interested in taking a gap time or do I want to go now? Do I want to go now or do I want to take a gap time, right? You're revisiting that application timeline. If you're applying, you're going to work on your materials and submit early. We'll talk about that in a few minutes. If you're taking gap time, you're going to want to finalize your plans, right? Are you going to the workforce? Are you doing another graduate degree? Are you doing a fellowship? You're going to want to finalize those plans. You want to continue pursuing interesting pre-law activities, attend info sessions, and talk to admissions counselors. This is, I think, something that might be overlooked. Making connections with admissions counselors can sometimes be the difference between, you getting in and, someone else who might not know the admissions counselor not getting in. So go to these events, shake their hand, get to know them, tell them about yourself. Don't be afraid to do that. You're going to want to check in with a pre-law advisor about your plans, maintain your relationships with your recommenders, and think about how you're going to maintain those moving forward. Finish your undergraduate career on a high note by maintaining a solid GPA, and then make some plans to visit prospective law schools. So this could be during the summertime. This could be during spring break. We're really fortunate to be here in New York. There are tons of schools here in New York. And also, there are a million schools within 4 or 5 hours, on the train or on the bus. So you can visit many, many, many schools, even while you're still here, even on a weekend or something. So during your senior year, this is a good time to do that. So let's talk a little bit about gap time. Um, People sometimes are like, oh, is this better? Is this better for me? Is this the best thing to do? Should I go straight through? What are the pros and cons? So the pros and cons are, you should think about what your personal, professional, and academic goals are, right? Everybody is a little bit different. Everybody has a little bit different priorities. There are pros and cons. There are benefits and challenges to taking time off. So some of the benefits are you get to have a little break, right? These 4 years are tricky sometimes, and maybe you want a little break. But the challenge is that you can lose your momentum a little bit. You're not going to be in school, you're going to be working or, doing whatever. It's going to be a little bit different. So there are definitely benefits and challenges, and there are more. Happy to talk to folks about individual situations. There are financial implications to taking gap time. Again, maybe you want to take a little time off to make some money, or, going straight through. Of course, you're going to have to figure that out. Taking time off also means that maybe you're going to have to start paying back your loans, right? So there are some things to think about. And then, of course, we have visa implications for our international students. You have to kind of think about like, all right, what am I going to do in the meantime? What's the visa situation? Is this going to be annoying for me to have to reapply, whatever? So these are some things to kind of keep in mind. About 3/4 of Barnard Law School applicants apply as alums. So I say that to say, almost 75% of people are taking at least a year off in between undergrad and grad. Um, but that doesn't necessarily mean that that should be like your path. Your path should be your path, right? You need to think about what works best for you. So now I have a few ideas of some things that you can do if you're thinking about taking gap time. So first is working a job directly related to your intended career path. So if you want to work in big law, work in a big law firm. You want to work in immigration, you're working in an immigration nonprofit or, whatever. Um, you can also explore professional interests outside the legal profession. A lot of people in law school are career changers. So it is okay to explore something different, especially if you're not 100% certain you want to go to law school. It is perfectly fine to try different things out and then still decide on going to law school. Speak with lawyers and law students about the profession, and then hone your professional skills. So, again, going back to that research, written and oral communication, organization, analytical skills. These are skills that are going to mean the difference between success and, not success in law school. So, being able to take a little time to focus on those is a good thing. So next we have some academic ideas. Visit the schools that you're interested in, study for and take your standardized exams, take classes on your own or through another graduate program. So let's say you're, a Spanish major, but you've always wanted to take a chemistry class. Now is a good time to do that, right? Go ahead. Read books about the profession and law school. So here are a few that have been recommended. You can look online. I've seen a really great list on like Reddit of books. There are other websites that have other books. There are tons of books that you can read having to do with law school. And then here are some personal ideas. So explore personal interests outside of the legal profession, save some money, travel, enjoy your leisure time, maintain your relationships, volunteer, reflect on your thoughts about the profession, work on your physical and mental health to prepare for the stresses of grad school. I can't emphasize that enough. Grad school is a very stressful place to be. So you want to make sure that you're in tip-top shape, whatever that means for you, so that you can be able to handle the pressures of it. And then, of course, we have read for pleasure. All right. So in this part of our presentation, we're going to talk a little bit about the law school components, the law school application components. But before we get started, I'm going to share some acronyms so that we can make sure that we're all on the same page. The American Bar Association, as I talked about before, is the governing body for law schools and the legal profession. They're in charge of providing accreditation for law school, administering the bar exam, and keeping track of who's been admitted to the bar. Now, the bar is like the governing body of like all lawyers. You need to make sure that you pass the bar exam to be a lawyer. The Credential Assembly Service, or CAS, is a kind of portfolio management system for law school applicants, and we'll talk about that more in a few. Then we have the GRE, which is the Graduate Record Exam. This is one of the exam choices that you have. You can use the GRE to, or you can take the GRE to apply to law school. We have the Law School Admissions Council, or LSAC. This is the, kind of the middleman between you and law schools. We'll talk about them shortly as well. And then we have the law school admissions test. This is the exam traditionally taken to gain admission to law school. So first up, we have the Credential Assembly Service. This is a service that you'll need to sign up for in order to apply to law school. It stores all of your transcripts, letters of recommendation, LSAT scores, and score reports, and delivers them to the schools to which you're applying. You should register for an account at least 6 weeks before you intend to submit your application. Your account will remain active for 5 years, but it renews every time you sign up for the LSAT. So let's say you decide you're in your junior year, you're like, okay, I'm applying in my senior year. I'm going to take the LSAT this summer. You take it and you're like, maybe I will think about, taking it again. Or I'm not going to do it. I'm going to take some gap time. And then 2 years from now, you sign up for the LSAT again. That timer resets. So, you're starting, at 5 years every time that you sign up for the LSAT. It costs $215 as of 2026. It might go up next year or it might not. Oh, one more thing. It costs $215, but there is a fee waiver. There's a fee waiver program through LSAC that you can get fee waivers for CAS and for the LSAT and for a couple of other things as well. All right, so let's move on and talk about the actual parts of the application. So first and foremost is the personal statement. Then we have experience statements and supplemental essays, GRE or LSAT scores, transcripts from every school with some exceptions for study abroad. So if you studied abroad for less than a year, you don't need to share your transcript with LSAC. Your resume, your recommendations, and then optional, of course, fee waivers. So if you're interested in a fee waiver for CAS or LSAT, you apply through LSAC. If you need a fee waiver for the GRE, you would apply through Educational Testing Systems, or ETS. Or if you need them for law school application fees, you request them from the individual schools. All right, so let's talk about the 3 types of statements. First up, we have our experience or perspective statements. So formerly, these were generally called diversity statements. Now they're called usually experience or perspective statements. It's a chance for you to share a little bit more about your background and how it's influenced your interest in the profession, and or how it will influence how you show up in the classroom. So some people will write about identity stuff. Some people will write about an experience, a moving experience that they've had. Everybody will write about something that that impacts how they are showing up to the classroom and to the profession. Sometimes these are optional. Next, we have our supplemental essays and addenda. Okay, so these are essay prompts or questions that are unique to each school. So I saw one last year that was like, recommend 10 books, right? Totally different from every other kind of thing that I've seen, but they want to know, what are your 10 book recommendations? This offers opportunities to let law schools know a little bit more about you beyond the typical, right? They're usually brief, 50 to 100 words, 50 to 500 words, sorry. So again, it's just like a little spicy thing. They want to know a little bit like, ooh, you're telling us everything in the traditional personal statement, but we want to know a little bit more about you. What makes you unique? Okay, So then there's also an addendum. So this is used to explain something in your application that is not easily gleaned. So for example, if you took a leave of absence or you had a grade situation a couple of semesters that was different from other semesters, or you had a huge jump in your LSAT score. Law schools are going to have questions about those things. So you would write a little brief addendum to tell them a little bit more about what happened. So the law school, the LSAT score thing might be like, the first time I took my LSAT, I was really sick, but the next time I took it, I was well. That explains the 10-point jump or something like that. So it's usually optional, but sometimes not. And then finally, we have the personal statement. This is like kind of the bedrock of your application. It's really important because it is a chance for you to speak directly to the people that are reading your application. They're only seeing your LSAT score and your GPA and your transcript, but this is a chance for them to see you as a person who's interested in going to law school. So the personal statement answers these questions. Who are you? Why do you want to go to law school? And what do you plan on doing with your legal education? So these three questions are kind of what set the law school personal statement apart from the undergrad personal statement. The undergrad personal statement, you can kind of write about whatever, right? But the law school personal statement, you really need to be focused on why law school, what do you hope to do, and who are you, right? It's typically about 2 pages. And again, it is focused on what you hope to do with the legal education you seek to receive, right? So if you get to the end of your personal statement and you can't answer, the person that's reading it can't answer that, then we need to make sure that, we're going back in and putting that in there. Here are some kind of guiding questions. Why do you currently want to be a lawyer? What drives you to want to study law? What have been your most meaningful law-related experiences? If there's a specific area you would like to study or practice, why? And why this school, right? So these are ways that you can help law schools paint a fuller picture of you as a person. So these are some questions that are guiding questions for the personal statement. All right, so let's talk about testing now. Some people might want to know LSAT, GRE, which one is better. It's really up to you, although every law school will accept the LSAT, only not every law school will accept the GRE. So if you are thinking about which one you need to take, you should think about all the schools you want to apply to and make sure that they all accept the GRE. If even one of them is like, we don't accept the GRE, then it makes the most sense to just go with the LSAT. So when thinking about where this will be in your timeline, you want to think about your readiness. And the way that you know that you're ready is you've taken several practice exams and you're scoring about 2 to 3 points above what you hope to score, right? So when you think about the median score or the score that you want, you need to be scoring consistently 2 to 3 points above that, because usually when you take the test, your score is about 2 to 3 points below that. So that's when you know you're ready to take the test. When it comes to accommodations with the GRE, you want to sign up for accommodations before signing up for the test. And for the LSAT, you apply for accommodations after signing up for the test. And each of the websites has really specific steps and information about documentation. You can also work with the cards department about how to make sure that you're able to get what you need when taking the test. You are welcome to retake the test. You can take it up to 7 times in your life. Most people are not taking it 7 times. So yeah, you can retake the test. When it comes to preparation, that can be a little bit of a personal choice. you can be successful doing self-study, doing app study, doing a class, doing tutoring, whatever, right? So you should think about how you have prepared to take standardized tests in the past. Was that successful for you? What would you change? What would you keep the same? I would talk to people who are currently in law school and ask them for their recommendations for things like tutors, apps, books, programs, whatever. And then you're going to want to think about your budget and your timeline, right? So all of those things coming together are how you can think about how you want to prepare. And then, as I talked about before, there are fee waivers for both the LSAT and the GRE. You sign up on the website, and the fees are usually around 200, to close to $300 for each of these tests. So again, you want to make sure that you're factoring that into your budget. All right, so resume. This gives law schools an outline of activities that you did either in undergrad or after undergrad if you're applying afterwards. It's pretty straightforward. You want to use resume writing best practices. I have a QR code here. I hope that it works. If it doesn't work, it's literally just the resume resource that's on Handshake. So you can go there after and download what we've got there. So the structure typically includes, the regular sections, so education, experience, extracurricular, etc. It is okay to include things that are not related to law school. That's fine, or law. That's fine. I would say 2 pages max. And you want to follow the application instructions. So some schools want you to add things like, was this a part-time or full-time thing? Who was your supervisor? But not every school wants that. So you want to make sure that you're looking at whatever the application instructions are as you're filling out your resume. Now let's talk a little bit about recommendations. These are integral to a strong application, okay? So you want to make sure that you're picking people that can write a strong letter of recommendation for you. So these are helped to determine your readiness for law school and the legal profession. One thing that professors will write about is your readiness for the academic portion of graduate school. So that's why law schools use these letters to kind of help them understand where you are academically. You'll need 2 or 3 recommenders. And then when it comes to who, again, someone that you have a strong relationship with. If you're applying what they call KJD or directly after undergrad, or you want to go to law school directly after undergrad, you should have at least one professor who knows you well in an academic context. If you're applying as an alum, 3 years or less from graduation, having a professor is nice, but not required. And then if you're applying as an alum more than 3 years after graduation, there's no professor that's needed. If you have a relationship with a professor, it could be good. But after that amount of time, you probably have some professional references that are going to be maybe stronger than, somebody that you took in your first year 10 years ago. Only choose recommenders, again, who are able to write you a strong letter of recommendation. So when you're asking, you might want to just straight up ask, can you write me a strong letter of recommendation? And they'll tell you yes, or they'll tell you no. And then finally, when it comes to recommendations, a personal connection with a recommender is preferred to someone with a famous name or a high profile position, right? So make sure that when you're thinking about your recommenders, you're not just saying like, oh, this person is the head of the firm, this person is, some famous person. You're really focusing on the relationship that you have with this person. All right, so let's talk a little bit about how law schools evaluate applicants. They're looking at that personal statement and experience statement, and they're looking for quality. So they're looking for, grammar, spelling, tone, stuff like that. And they want to make sure that the fit for law school is demonstrated. So you really are telling them why you want to go to law school. They're looking at your transcript, but not just the number, okay? Not just the number. They're looking at the courses that you've taken. They're looking at your GPA trajectory and your overall undergraduate GPA. So All 3.0s are not created the same. They're looking at all of that. They're taking into account what the classes you were, how many classes, etc. And they're thinking about your GPA in context, not just that number. They're looking at your resume and they're thinking about quality versus quantity. So don't think about this as just like trying to check all of these boxes. Think about the things that are really going to bring you joy and bring a lot of quality to your life. That's what they're thinking about with those letters of recommendation. They're looking for, again, that fit for law school and academic preparation. And then finally, when it comes to test scores, they're really thinking about their medians. And we'll talk about where to find information about that in a little bit. Okay, so now we're going to talk a little bit about the law school application year. So it kind of starts in the spring. It's kind of a year-long process. So whether you're a student, whether you're applying as a senior, or you're applying as an alum, this timeline is going to be pretty much the same. So the spring before you decide to do your application, so the spring before the fall of when you're going to be actually applying, here are some things that you're going to want to do. You're going to want to reach out to your recommenders and let them know that, you're going to be applying in the fall. You're going to be doing your LSAT and GRE, and the prep for that. Credential Assembly Service, you're going to sign up. You're going to finalize your law school application list, and then it could be nice if you have some law school visits. So when it comes to choosing which law schools to apply to, here are some things that you can think about. First is financial aid. If you are a person who knows that you're going to need financial aid to attend law school, you're going to want to see if the school is generous with financial aid or not. And one way that you can find that is on something called the 509 reports. So 509 reports are reports that every law school, every accredited law school is required to complete every year and submit to the American Bar Association. And those 509 reports have tons of information on them. And one piece of information that they have is information about financial aid. So it tells a percentage of how many students receive financial aid and what percentage of the cost of attendance was covered. So if you see that only like 10% of students receive financial aid at that school, you'll know that that school is not very generous, right? So you want to make sure that you are, if this is something that's important to you, that you are doing your research and kind of calculating what your odds are going to be for financial aid. Location could be important. It's not necessary to go to a school where you will ultimately want to practice necessarily. For some people it is, for some people it's not. But it is something I think, especially these days, to think about. Do you think you can thrive for 3 years in, wherever you're at? Law school clinics are really important because it's a way for you to be able to explore your specialty. So you're going to want to see what clinics are offered there. The bar passage rate, that's super important because that's the point of going to law school is passing that bar, right? So you want to make sure that you're going to a school with a high bar passage rate. Graduate employment rate, again, you are going to law school to become a lawyer and get a job as a lawyer. So you want to make sure that they have that high employment rate. Job placement, same thing. Again, I'm a vibes person. Are the vibes right at this school? Is there a red flag? Do some research on the news. Are there any things that you don't feel comfortable about? You want to make sure that the vibes are right. And then at the very, 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 very bottom of my list is rankings, right? So rankings are important to some folks, not as important to others. I would recommend reading about how rankings are put together, so that you can kind of understand like how arbitrary and non-arbitrary some of the factors are that go into rankings. The bottom line is you should be picking a school that is going to prepare you best for the career that you are interested in attending. All right, so let's talk a little bit about summer in our timeline. Summer is a great time to get those personal statements out of the way. Uh, Again, get in touch with your letters of recommendations writers, let them know, like, okay, I'm really applying, this is happening. How should we check in about this? This is my list of schools, etc. Check in with the pre-law advising office so that we can kind of talk about things. And then, of course, you're going to want to make sure that you take your LSAT or GRE. So I recommend that you should take your first LSAT by June, so that it gives you enough time to retake it if you need to retake it, a little bit later in the cycle. Fall is go time. Fall is application. Fall is pressing the submit button. This is, the real deal time. So this is when you can be working on your supplemental essays. A lot of times those prompts are not available until September. So, you're going to want to do that. You're going to submit your FAFSA early so that you can get a better understanding of what your financial commitment might be. You're going to confirm your letters of recommendation, attend info sessions, and then in terms of when to apply, you want to finalize by late October and submit by late November. So I would say a good window for application should be between Halloween and Thanksgiving. This ensures that you're early in the cycle, but hopefully will give you enough time to do the things that you want to do. If you're trying to debate on whether you should submit early or work a little bit longer on your application, it is much better to have an application that you feel good about, that might be submitted a little bit later than submitting it earlier and maybe things aren't as great. Maybe you needed another pass on your essay, or maybe you were, up for a promotion, but that wasn't coming through until, later on in the season. It is much better to show these things than submit something on September 1st. All right, winter and spring. So first, hopefully this is when you're going to start getting your responses from law schools, right? So you're going to want to review those responses. You want to consult with a Beyond Barnard advisor about waitlist or hold strategies. So sometimes you'll be put on a waitlist, or sometimes your application will be held. We can talk a little bit how to navigate that. You're going to want to attend open houses for admitted students so that you can meet other people and really get to know the campus and ask your questions. You're going to want to confirm your acceptances and make deposits, and then inform other schools of your your decision not to attend. So this is really important because that helps them clear the waiting list for other people who are interested in hearing back, right? So as soon as you know you don't want to attend the school, just go ahead and release them, let them know that you're not going to attend so that they can move on to someone else who is waiting eagerly to hear about their decision, who's on the wait list. In terms of number of schools to apply to, I don't ever really give a number because it's really based on the schools you want to attend, your amount of time that you have to fill out applications, and then, of course, your budget for applications. But these are some averages. These are some national averages. So nationally, in the class of 24-25, people submitted about 7 applications, and they were admitted to about 2 schools. So these are things to think about. My hard line for applying to schools is only apply to schools that you want to attend. So that's my only hard and fast rule about how to apply. So I have a few words of advice for alums here. So first of all, the application timeline is relatively similar. Just consider your responsibilities and obligations. So I would give you the same advice that I would give any, undergrad. It's the same timeline, right? So given your time constraints, working, other responsibilities, it is a good idea to spend some time planning. Plan, okay? So again, when we talked about recommenders earlier, I want to reemphasize that these can include academic and non-academic references. Supervisors can be a really great choice, especially if they've known you for a long time and they know you're interested in going to law school. So yes, you want to make sure that you're spending some time researching your options, and you should know that your journey to law school and through law school can look however you want it to. There are evening programs, there are part-time programs, there are lots of other non-traditional things that you can do. It doesn't necessarily have to be, the same route that everybody's doing. So you can definitely research. Remember your resources. Beyond Barnard is available to you even after graduation. So you always will have us here. You'll always have access to the toolkit, etc. Um, your experience is an asset. Law schools like to see when people have had a little time off. So it's not a deficit. It's not a black mark. It is something that they like. And do what works best for you. Finally, do what works best for you. Think about your needs. Again, it doesn't have to look traditional. It can look however it's going to make you successful, whatever works best for you. All right, so we have here some additional resources. So we have our our pre-law toolkit. Um, this is a source of kind of all of our pre-law resources all together. There's a spreadsheet, there's our overview PDF, there are a bunch of recorded things, there's, uh, FAQs, stuff like that. So you can access it by going using this QR code or going to this address. If you're an alum, please email me with a non-Barnard email address to jdublin@barnard.edu and I'll give you access to it. We have some additional resources here. Again, 509 reports, what I talked about earlier, those are good as gold. I love 509 reports. Definitely you can spend some time seeing what's going on at each law school just by looking at that. Access Lex is a really, really, really fantastic resource for things like finding scholarships, financing your legal education, understanding how to choose law schools, things like that. The American Bar Association, we've talked about. Beyond Barnard, of course, Barnard Connect, a great place to connect with alums who are in the legal profession and in law school. The Council on Legal Education and Opportunity is a local organization that provides different opportunities for folks to learn about law school. We have Khan Academy. Khan Academy is a test prep program that you can have access to that's free. Law Hub is just a fantastic resource of a bunch of different law-related resources. Law school data, if you want to know how your GPA and LSAT scores stack up, that's a really great resource. LinkedIn, of course, lsac.org, of course. The National Association for Law Placement is a place that shows statistics about how and where people who are in the legal profession are getting hired. And then, of course, we talked about the pre-law toolkit. All right, so I want to thank you all for coming and being here. I'm going to now stop recording.